So, what can we do to reconcile the thinking of Sam Harris and Jordan B. Peterson? Because I think that's what we need to do, and we are a lot of people that feels that this is important, and that's why we attend these podcasts and these events that these guys are holding, and we feel that we are interested in what they are saying and in their conversation, because we want to boil down what they are talking about and what they believe to be true. We want that to boil down into one cohesive set of thinking that can make sense of reality and life and so on. So today I'm going to think out loud and propose a model of how we as humans experience the world. And of course it sounds very grandiose to propose that. Well, for me it feels a little intimidating to believe that perhaps I can propose something of value. I mean, there are great thinkers out there, but we live in a time when I think what is real and where we are going and how we're going to live our lives and tackle the problems that humanity has, we live in a time when we all can contribute, because old ideas and old ideologies, sorry for my bad English, political views, religions, thinkings, philosophy, everything, for one seems to polarize, and secondly seems to not work very well, and we not agree on how to do this. And we need some ideas and a positive future to aim at to go forward. So here's my idea. We live in 4 layers of augmented realities. And what I mean with that is that we can model ourselves as we can model ourselves as experiencing reality at 4 tiers, one atop of the other. So and the 4 tiers are as follows. The first one, of course, being the space-time that we experience, that we live in, that we have objects, we have you and me lives in the physical reality, and the stuff that's in here we can interact with, and we have developed this very well working model of reality in physics and science that really works. If we act in faith to physical laws and models of reality, the outcome is really what you can expect from these models. So that's the first tier of reality, and what we as humans experience that we're living in is actually created by our brains, and it's not no mystery there. Well, it's a lot of mystery there, but I mean, there's a lot of agreement on this, that when I look at, I'm looking at the camera now, of course, I can see a camera, I can see myself, I can see that I have a shirt, I have all these objects that are presented to me, but this is an augmented reality. We know it's an augmented reality because colors are created for us to distinguish between objects, and smell and touch and eyesight and everything. The objects we see could be something completely different. We see the object that are relevant to us to interact with the world. So for example, a fly or a bat or a fish or any other living thing, they would live in the same reality, but they would experience another reality. A bike or a camera or a pair of glasses or a car or anything has no meaning to fly. So the fly doesn't live in a world where there are cars and houses, because a fly needs some other augmentation of reality to navigate it. So that's the first tire. So then on top of that we have the, what shall we call it, the emotional tire. I'm really grasping in what to call this, but we augment this physical space-time reality with truth about how to act that communicates to us through feelings. So, for example, we can walk the savannah and see a lion, and the lion, of course, is an object that we create. Our brain creates that object for us in space-time. So that's the first layer of augmented reality, and we get afraid. Because a lion is dangerous, it can eat us, and so the fear is an augmented reality about how to act in relation to there being a lion there. And I propose that we can view feelings as an augmented reality about how to act. So and all this, of course, is part of what we also call the unconscious. But I think the model can be, as a beginning, can be that there is some kind of pattern recognition and learning that we can do that translates and augments reality with these feelings of how to act. And we have to be really honest that why we get happy and why we get sad and why we get afraid and why we get curious and all these signals to us to avoid some stuff and aim for some other stuff, we can't escape it, and it's very, very real to us, but it doesn't exist out there. It exists in this mysterious inner world that are presented to us through mechanisms we don't understand, and we are grasping to understand them. So now we have two layers, we have two tires, the space-time reality and the augmented reality of space-time, and then on top of that we augment it with how to act, and the signal there is emotion, the emotional reality, we can call it that. Then on top of that we have developed the ability to, for one, be conscious. So consciousness exists on this third tire, is my proposal, and this tire is about rational thinking and logical thinking and language, and making a representation of this reality, the other two tires, and represent them in these languages. So the spoken language is one, and the written language, and also the mathematical language and the logical language, and all these other languages, even programming languages, are a representation and an augmented reality where we have extracted the things we want to interact with in a very, very precise way. So I mean, logical languages and mathematical languages are the extremes of this representation and augmentation that we have discovered that we can use as a tool to talk about the world. And so these are the three most important tires that we operate on, and they operate well, I don't know if they operate independently, because I think they interconnect, but they are on top of each other, and I think that's a valuable model, that whatever is out there, the first tire we create for ourselves is the space-time tire, an augmented reality with colors and objects and time and behavior and physics and everything. On top of that, we augment it with feelings and emotions and this complex pattern recognition with truth about how we should act in this space-time reality. And on top of that, we have developed the tire of languages, and there also, for some reason, we have consciousness. So that's my proposal, and I said there were 4 tires, and I think the 4th tire is what's on top of that. Well, the reality, or the augmented reality that exists on top of that and that we interact with, is when we cooperate. So when we as humans cooperate in large groups, we create communities and ideas about how to aim collectively at goals. So we create societies, and we create organizations, and we create sports team, and we create institutions and fan clubs for music groups, and well, any type of belonging to a group and stating or interacting with this group in the form of well, we understand these groups as something outside of ourselves collectively that has some kind of will. We explain the collective movements around us using something we call will. So, and an example of this is, of course, religions. Examples of this is, of course, religion. So, over time we have tried to grasp with the idea of how to interact with what we experience to be powers of the world in terms of something out there having a will, and we try to discover what that will is and how we should interact with it. And of course that's where you get the traditional religions from, and the manifestation of this will is, well, like gods and or worlds beyond our worlds that exist beyond our living life. When we die, we go somewhere, and whatever we call it, it's the common thing about this 4th tire of augmented reality is that in this reality these external powers with will exist. And of course the modern version of this is what we can see in capitalism and in economic systems, and we talk about the market. And although we don't think about it, we think that the market, of course the market exists, and the market has a will, and the market, you have to interact with the market so that it provides with your needs, and in this case money and products and so on. But actually it's still the same thing as what the traditional gods or the old religions are trying to do, or how they affect us, how we explain how we should act together in relation to these external powers. So the market is, although we know that the market is just a group of other humans, well, including ourselves, acting together in a, well, we explain it as we are trading. So I want something and you produce it, or you want something and I produce it, and when we do this in a market, the things we want to happen does happen. So, and then we can disagree on the will of the market, or if we should let the market do freely, well, let it free, or if we should control the market. But the core is still that the market is something, an external power, and we relate to that as this power having a will. So the fourth tire is actually all these external powers coming from us acting in faith to these larger powers, and this is a way for us to conceptualize and explain why we should do this together in communities. So that's my idea. I think I've been practicing this in my own life to see if there's value in having this view of myself as a human being and other human beings as being living in these four tires of augmented realities. And so far I think it has value, and I think it's a way of, coming back to Sam Harris and Jordan B. Peterson, it's a way of reconciling what these two guys are talking about, because I think that it's easy to see that Sam Harris is actually talking about the reality that exists on the third tire. The tire where you experience that you are conscious and you use language and logic and facts about reality to find a way of living and find the values to guide you through life, and the whole that discussion about truth and facts. While Jordan B. Peterson, of course, is very much focused and want to lift that, the second tire, the emotional tire, this machinery, or whatever we should call it, that evolution has put into us, that communicates to us through feelings, also contains a truth that we need to bring up to the rational and thinking tire. It's hidden from us. I mean, when I wake up and I go out here on my balcony and the sun is shining and I feel happy, the third tire with language and logical thinking and rational thinking really has a problem of understanding, why do I get happy? I mean, of course we can speculate and say, oh well, I get happy because the temperature is right, and I can see there's no threats out there, so it's a good day, and that's why I get happy. But I think whatever you think about Jordan B. Peterson and his connection with Christianity and the stories there, if we leave that aside and just focus on his trying to get at the core of why or how we should use this, why we have the values that we have and how we should relate to them and how we should try to figure out and make clear contours around what these values are, what they are coming from, and how we should talk about them and conceptualize them and lift them up to the language level so that we can use them in rational thinking. I think that has value, and that's why, if you as I experience the same thing, that listen to Sam Harris, you admire and you admire his honesty and you like his abstract thinking, and it's good to be very clear and very skeptic and very trying very hard to find truth. The things he's talking about, the way he can use language to talk about these things doesn't resonate or give you clues to how you should live your life and relate to the more complex aspects of the confusion about not understanding what's going on in the world and how to relate to that. The way he talks about it doesn't resonate with your feelings as Jordan B. Peterson does, and I think that tells us something, and we need to figure out a way to bring that out of Jordan B. Peterson's ideas and reconcile it with these rational enlightenment ideas. And that's what's going on, and that's what I'm very interested in. And so this is my contribution. I'm trying to put words on this model of ourselves, that whatever is out there, we are so far bound to or restricted to live in our augmented reality that's for some reason or other it's close enough to the whatever is out there so that we can interact with it, and we interact with it on these 4 layers. So let's see if I can give more examples of the 4 layers again. So if I go to my supermarket to buy food, the supermarket and the shelves with all the products and so on, I interact with the supermarket on the first level as the physical, the space-time level where all the products and the things are, and it takes time for me to go from here to the supermarket and pick the stuff I want to, but we can all agree more or less that we can see the products on the shelf, and we can see how long it takes to pick those items and bring them to the cashier and pay for them and so on. And that's the first tier of augmented reality that enables us to do that. The second tier is the augmentation. On top of that is my feelings, what makes me avoid things, and what made me go to the supermarket and pick the products that I actually wanted. And that's a mystery to us, and we need some way of relating to this impulses that we get. Why did I pick that product? Why did I avoid that other product? Why does commercials work the way it works? And we have to see that there's a lot of truth about how we should act in the world that are manifested in this emotional reality that we augment the physical space-time reality with. And when I reflect on this, and when I now sit here and talk to you, of course I experience myself to be at the 3rd level, the 3rd tier, where I feel conscious, and I feel somehow outside all this, and as a separated viewer or observer of this reality, and I use language and the mechanisms of language and logic to make sense of this. And this is another augmentation on top of this. And I interact with reality also on the 4th level, where we have communities, people coming together, acting in faith to some common story, to use the, well, as Yuval Harari is talking about, that we have this superpower as humans to cooperate on this fourth level. That so as humans we have this superpower to interact with the communities of people acting together in faith to some common story, as Yuval Harari would explain it. And well, that's the fourth layer of augmented reality. I think also we should be aware that when we use language to talk about or making sense of the world, there is, well, of course, the postmodernist has discovered this problem of what can we use the language to describe, and how can we make sense of why we experience one reality and not another, and why we value some things and doesn't value other things, and how we differentiate between ourselves in different groups on what we value. And the postmodernists, in a sense, just throw up their hands and say, well, anything goes. It's a power game, and you need to just that's a game we're playing a power game. But again, that's what I like about Jordan B. Peterson, that he challenged that claim, and I want him to be right. I don't want the postmodernists to be right, because it does feel like it's such a one-dimensional world, and I can't feel that it's true. I mean, surely you agree with me that as human beings we have this drive to strive for something, and you can call it truth, and you can call it a goal in life, or happiness, or purpose, or whatever you will call it, but it isn't true that anything goes. We have some common ground when it comes down to it, that are expressed in how we feel about things, that are common, and that we just find it more valuable, and the truth about why we have these values are, so far, it's hidden from us. It's evolved through very, very long times, I mean thousands of years or millions of years, and it has some purpose, and it's up to us to now use our abilities, our actually very newly found abilities from enlightenment and forward, to make sense of and digging out and expressing this truth, so that we can use them in rational thinking. And so one final thing about this model I'm proposing here that I found interesting, and maybe it's just I get happy when I think this thing, and that's, it enables us to realize that our consciousness and our rational experience of life is actually the part of us that are furthest away from reality. And what do I mean by that? Well, if this is true, that we have these tires, we have the first tire, which is an augmented reality of space-time, third of our brain keeping consciously busy to feeding us with the world of objects and time and what's important. The second tire, figuring out how we should react to this reality. Should we be afraid, happy, go for this, anything, eat, find a mate, build a family, Um, that takes, of course, power from our brains to do that. That means that on top of that we have, if then on top of that we have the augmented reality of consciousness and language, then we are actually quite far away from reality itself. And we have, of course, clues to that this must be true, because we have used science to make another model of reality that talks about atoms and string theory and dark matter and all these other crazy models that actually works. It doesn't have any meaning to us as humans in our daily life, because we don't experience atoms and string theory and so on. But it's also a reality that's out there that we have been able to extract and make a model of on this third layer of our reasoning. But it also means that the reality we experience is very far away from that. It's at least, my proposal is at least 2 layers between us and that reality, and for good reasons. And also, of course, in brain science, I think I understand that they have discovered that it takes about roughly half a second to almost a second from that something is happening out there till then we are consciously aware that it does happen. So in a way we live at least half a second or a full second or even more away from the reality out there. And God only knows how much else is in what our other senses we are actually very far away from reality. But I'm not saying that this means that we can imagine anything out there, because we are, as Jordan B. Peterson points out, we are very, very restricted in how our actions, how we should align our actions over time to interact with reality. And that's the point. That's actually the thing that matters to us. So the reason we distance ourselves, or we have evolved to distance ourselves to this degree from reality, is that the parts that hidden from us isn't actually important to us to interact with the world, at least in the way we lived and has evolved to live. So the technology we have created, of course, enables us to do new stuff, and then it's important to know about atoms and electricity and electrons and dark matter and string theory and all this very, very powerful models of reality that enables us to act and get very valuable results. But this doesn't mean that we can just throw away the well, let's call it the truth hidden in the second layer, the emotional layer, this pattern recognition machine that tells us how to act and signals to us through emotions. So, well, this video is getting very long, and maybe I'm just rambling around and failing to pinpoint what I'm actually trying to say here, but well, I'm trying, and I think this is valuable, and so if you find anything I'm saying ringing true to you or being interesting, or you want to know more or want to contribute in any way, you are free to leave a comment or do your own video, or just join this. I think I'm proposing that we should help, in this case Jordan B. Peterson and Sam Harris, to reconcile their worlds, and doing it in a way so that it's understandable to as many people as possible, because of course rational thinking and logic and scientific thinking isn't a language that everyone likes to use or enjoys using. So we need many forms of expressing this new way of moving forward and cooperate as human beings, moving forward and face the future with a way of acting so that it so that we can go forward with the hope of a better future. It's hard to phrase it in any other way. So I think I'll stop there, and hopefully I can do more videos and elaborate and just thinking out loud and see what happens with these ideas. So thank you for watching, and see you next time.
If you like my videos, feel free to do nothing.